to the National Parents Union presents Speak Your Truth with yours truly, Vivett Dukes. How is everyone doing this evening? I'm having a really good evening so far. Thank God. I'm enjoying my first full day of vacation. Friday was my last day of teaching, so I'm feeling really accomplished getting through the last few months of remote learning and an altogether very eventful school year, a very different one for sure than one I've ever had before. So this feels good, and I vow every day over my breaks to just, enjoy every day. I'm usually working over the summer. This year, let's see if I am or I'm not. But whether I am or I'm not, I always just purpose each day, like enjoy it because I work hard for them. We all do. And self care is really important, especially in this time of so much social unrest and fighting for our human rights as members of the African diaspora living in America and across the globe is just so difficult that self-care is super important. So today was nice that I just kind of relaxed, and I look forward to coming on the shows every Monday and Thursday, Speak Your Truth, because it just all throughout the week I'll get messages from people, and I know that the conversations that are had during this 1 hour twice a week really does have an impact. At least that's the feedback that I'm getting, and so it does bolster me every Monday and every Thursday to get on and speak to the different guests that I have planned and that the National Parents Union helps me plan. Tonight's guest is a person that I know through my husband. They were both actually incarcerated at the same time together. And, one of the things that I learned from being married to a man who was incarcerated is that there is a brotherhood that takes place inside. And Martin was one of those brothers to John who really like looked out. I feel like he was an angel for our marriage, like making sure we got phone calls and just helping to be a cohesive glue for us, like rooting for us, and just so appreciate the way that Martin Garcia, the kind of friend that he was to John and continues to be to John and I, and to our Speak Your Truth and National Parents Union community. He's also a really wonderful father, and he exposed me even more so to an alternative narrative, a narrative that disrupts the status quo of narratives about how parents who are incarcerated must be towards their children. It's usually a very negative role or an adversarial role. And I learned from Martin and from many other, observing many other families interact inside, that there's such beautiful relationships that go on between parents and their children, vice versa. And you know what? Let me just bring Martin on because I'm talking so highly of him. Let me just bring in Martin and you meet him and let's get this conversation started. Sees, I respect you so much. Hi, Martin. Hi.
Hey, Vivett.
How are you?
I'm good, and yourself?
I'm doing well. I'm happy to see you and to talk with you.
Happy to see you too. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I was singing your accolades and introducing you to our guests and telling them how I know you and the brotherhood that you demonstrated, not only to John, but to me too. I really felt like you looked out for our marriage a lot, and just trying to convey to people that don't know that life, well, how important, like holding down the phone for a phone call or giving up your call so that we could talk Like those things really helped keep our marriage glued together. And we talk about it a lot, and we're so grateful to you for it. Like, just thank you. Thank you publicly.
It's nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you for feeling that that's a thing worthy of acknowledgement. It was just something I did for somebody I cared about deeply, like a brother. So.
Yeah. The system definitely tries to break up families. That's been my experience with it, that it tried to do everything it could to destroy my marriage and get between and make it difficult for us to maintain a relationship. So to see the resistance takes many forms, and to me, when other guys inside held it down with John and you guys just did your own thing and made your own ways to make it work for y'all. So just impressed at how that was done, Yeah. Um,
Thank you. Yeah, it was something difficult, and I guess I can kind of compare it to what's going on right now with all the defund the police things and everything, where we just kind of were able to establish a real sense of community without having the correctional officers necessarily running things all the time. We were able to kind of just maintain the community policing thing where we were relatively in charge of ourselves to a certain degree, and
yes,
maintain that that there's no violence going on, that everybody's eating, that everybody's getting on the phone, that everybody's getting to speak to their families,
yes.
everybody's getting access to the amenities that we had.
And that was done. And I think that just dispels this animalistic view that people have of incarcerated individuals. I think there are very negative stereotypes that have been pervasive. And one of them is like the humanity is taken away from the men, women, and children who are inside. Like, no, they're real humans. They still govern things. There's a system of how things run. It's its own subculture. And I think it's important to highlight the positive that I witnessed that dispelled stereotypes that I had. Like, wow, there's like a fraternity, basically, is what I could compare it to on the outside that has a positive connotation attached, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's I mean, I say when you live with somebody, it's a whole different experience. And to a certain degree, I think that, I mean, John and I lived together for 5 years, something like that,
Mm-hmm.
in the same unit. So he was fortunate enough to go home. And I think when you live with somebody for so long, like, I mean, you naturally develop a brotherhood, like you said, like a fraternity of some kind. It's impossible to not develop that. And I actually think that I may know some of the people that I was incarcerated with better than some of the people that I grew up with or that I was around when I was
Because
free.
we actually spent a weekend together. We both happened to have trailers, like the time, a weekend where you get to be away with your family and separate housing still on the prison grounds, but you have your own trailer basically, and you get time, just for those who don't know what that is. And so to go to at the same time, it allowed us to bond even stronger now with extended family and, just having a sense of normalcy. Like, this is what we would do. Like, yo, come over. Like, we're having a barbecue. We're hanging out. That definitely bonded us more, for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think we're very fortunate to have that because, I mean, we were the exception. I think out of 1,600 people that they were in Sing Sing, roughly 200 people, 200 families got to participate in that. And
Right.
not everybody on a regular basis, how we were, like, relatively quarterly.
Yes.
But you're right, those experiences for me were priceless. I mean, they helped me get through my time. They helped me have a sense of normalcy with my daughters. Like, I got to see my daughters grow and experience that. I got to potty train my nephew
Wow.
through that time, which, my nephew wasn't born before I was incarcerated. He was born while I was inside. And
Yeah.
I got to, like, spend quality time with
The one
him.
that I know.
Yeah, Sebastian,
Oh,
yes.
yes. Yes. And even that was amazing to me. Like, you come from a strong family in that it was your sister and that same nephew, her son, who were coming on the trailer. We think about the husband and wife bond. Like, no, this was brothers, sisters, to show you how deeply incarceration can try to sever relationships. Like those relationships are broken too. If you allow them to be, you're fighting for them, right? To still chill like brothers and sisters chill and know each other and joke and, correct it. It was really, it's important that that happened. And I didn't see that a lot. So when I saw your sister and your nephew, I was like, wow, they really checked for him. He has a good support system, which is
You
so
know,
crucial. Yeah.
absolutely. I'm extremely blessed when it comes to that. I had a huge support system, and
Mm-hmm.
she's my little sister. That's my heart right there. You know, she had
Mm,
two children. She had two children while I was gone, but I had the pleasure of meeting them
yes.
through that process. And I mean, like, I even remember the COs telling her one time, like, "Oh, I thought you were his girlfriend. Like, I didn't realize you were his sister. Like, you must love him a lot. Be
Yeah.
coming up here. Like, I know why the wives come up here, but." And she was like, "I love him. That's my big brother." And she brought charcoal, and it was like the middle of winter. We were out there barbecuing, and they're like, she's like, "Listen, my brother wants to barbecue. We're gonna barbecue."
In the barbecue. That's my brother. And that's exactly how she was. Not phased by things where I was still very like hot if something happened, like ready to go off. And she'd be
Yeah.
like, just calmate, basically, because at the end, you're just trying to get past here to get to them. So just relax yourself. And it was good that she was there to help. But,
It's funny because she's a hothead too, but I guess just in that moment, she's able to just put that to the side and focus on her goal.
exactly, which was you spending time with you. Um, I'm sure John will come on later. At least I'm hoping he does, so you guys can talk more. But one of the things that really stood out to me about you and why I wanted you to be on the show is your relationship with your children. So I mentioned the phone and how much like you were instrumental in making sure that John and I had phone time at times, even like giving up your time or swapping times. Like, all right, you guys talk now, and then when it's your time later, I can take it. However, you worked it out. You were always willing to work it out, and that you actually had times when you were like, no, I talk to my children at this time for sure. And I'm like, Dag, how did he manage that? And I won't tell your story for you, but as John started to tell your story, I was like, yo, there are dudes out here that I've never heard of them fighting hard like this for their kids. The way you fought to make sure you stayed in contact with them was unbelievable. Can you talk to us about that, please?
Sorry about that. I put it on mute because we got like a barbecue thing going on, family party. So
Oh, that's okay. That's
I
okay.
was trying to keep the noise down for everybody. But no, absolutely. It's a very difficult time to coordinate a specific time for calling people. Like when you get on the line for a phone in prison, it's like you may be on the line half an hour, you may be next 15 minutes, or you may be on that line. I've gotten on the line at 5 o'clock and not use the phone till 8, 9 o'clock at night. So it's definitely difficult. But I think that the respect and the camaraderie that we were able to garner as a community, people understood, people respected it, because not only did I fight for my rights to see and see my son from prison, but I helped others, like do their paperwork for the, do the paternity thing to get their names on a birth certificate so that they could have rights to even fight for visitation or, joint legal custody and things like that. So I think so many people just saw the authenticity and that I was relatively a selfless person, that they didn't mind coming together and say, you know what, where sometimes people would even hang up and be like, I'll call you back, or only use part of their phone call to let me get on the phone call because I could only call with the court order between 8 and 9 o'clock on a particular day.
Wow.
So people like always, and so sometimes John, if he stayed back, he would be the one to facilitate it, or other people would take turns like, listen, we're holding the phone for Martin, or people would let me skip the line. And it wasn't only just for me, like you said, like on the day when Don lost his grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
everybody was really attentive and everybody came together. And as soon as John came back, it didn't matter what line was going on, John was going on the phone. And then we did that with everybody. Whenever anybody went through some traumatic experience, apart from the trauma that we were already suffering,
Mm-hmm.
people generally came together and understood and were like, hey, use the phone or use the kitchen next, or, here, jump in the shower next, relax, decompress, and just try to help each other out as much as we could.
I saw that even on the outside with the community of family members that also connected, it was like that also, where you knew you had someone that you could, for the most part, reach out to who understood, you know what I mean? Like had an idea of what, or you would know, like, is the prison on lockdown? I haven't been able to get through, or just a connection to know what's going on, because at any point in time, if the communication got locked off, it was very traumatic to not be able to know what's going on. You know, how did you? Well, two questions. Who taught you, if anyone, how to navigate the system the way you did to be able to know how to execute your parental rights? And then how did you go about doing it while being inside?
So I basically, I would say I'm autodidactic. Like I didn't, I came upstate and I realized that I didn't know anything.
Mm.
I realized that I didn't know the laws. I didn't know the rules. Like I was, in the streets. I made some poor choices, and I realized I didn't really understand the laws around me. So I made it my business when I first came upstate to hit the law library and the general library. And I love to read, so it was just a natural first step for me to cope with incarceration. So I would go to the law library, and I started, like before when I first went upstate, the directives weren't computerized, so there was like a big book, and you had to like pay for the copies. So I would make copies of the directives or like the master index of all these rules,
Yeah.
and I started just reading up, and I started trying to learn a little bit about like family law, because I realized that I hadn't seen my son, and that she wasn't willing to bring him up. I would like speak to her. She would say she's bringing him, she's not bringing him. We tried to compromise several times, and it just wasn't working out. So I realized that I had to learn on my own, because I didn't necessarily have the money to invest in a private lawyer.
I want to pause right there on that point, because I think that's the part that impressed me, that I think is worthy of highlighting, that as a father, if you're in a situation where the mother is not willing, the child can act on his or her own behalf. And if you and the mother of the child are not together and it's not working out, then it is up to you to legally execute your rights and perhaps get off that kick of, oh, I don't mess with the police, or I don't allow them in my family. Like, nah, you have to know how to work the system. There's times when you do need to take it the step further, so that your child knows your father loves you, because that's who ends up being hurt. The child, when you don't exact those rights and you don't take the next step, it doesn't cost anything. Martin's not a lawyer. He just read hearing. I read while he was in prison. He read some directives, he read some books, he figured out how to do it. And if you don't know how to do it, then the community needs to have people available, public advocates, community advocates, who can say, all right, I can help you with this. And you don't have to be a lawyer either. So I just wanted to highlight that, because I think that's where a lot of parents drop the ball, when that's your seed, that's your child.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the first things I learned about, and one of the things that scared me the most is when I read that case law determined that you have parental rights while you're incarcerated, and that if you don't exercise them, you may forego them.
Mm-hmm.
So when I saw the scenario that said I didn't want to necessarily be in a contentious relationship with my son's mother or be adversarial, but I also realized that it was scarier that if I didn't exercise my parental rights while I was incarcerated and waited till I came home to try to compromise, that I would lose in court, because the judge would tell me, well, you were locked up for 10 years. Why did you never care to be a father before? And that to me is scarier than any contention or adversarial relationship I could have with anybody.
And that's a real question, because as the child, you may wonder, like, well, Dad, didn't you ever try to find me or get in contact with me? Like, the laziness comes out. It does shine, where it's like, what were you doing? You didn't try, you didn't write a letter, you didn't do anything, you didn't send an email, you didn't try to find out. It's just unacceptable. So it shouldn't be such an applause that you did that, but too much I see that that's not being done, or it's like a big deal. Like, is it that hard? I'm asking you, was it that hard? Maybe I'm dumbing it down too much.
I mean, it was difficult insofar as I mean, it's a legal procedure. You got to learn terminology. You have to learn how to do. Like the first time I actually filed the paperwork, it was returned to me by the court saying I did it improperly because
Okay.
I downloaded some form from the law library and they said it wasn't the right form. And they instructed me that like, if you ever need a form from a New York City court system, like write to the court and we'll send you the right document. So I
Okay.
learned, so I learned that. So, I started the process and then, I had to restart the process after months of waiting for paperwork to go out and for
Mhm.
paperwork to come back and say, hey, you didn't do it right. You got to do it again. So that like took time. I was also on a point where I was doing what's called in prison, they call it an IPA, an inmate program associate, which is basically society's equivalent of a teacher's aide. And I
Okay.
was doing that program to try to earn the 6 months off, an extra 6 months off my sentence. And I was scared to lose my place, like if I was transferred to something and land in a different prison. So I waited actually like roughly 2.5 years before I even started it until I got to Sing Sing. And as soon as I got to Sing Sing is when I commenced it, when I said, you know what, I'm going to be here a while. I tried informally for a while. We weren't able to see eye to eye. And I
Okay.
felt like I had no other resort but to seek, a remedy from the court. But it's not a simple thing. There's a lot of legal terminology, checking things. You got to notarize things, which is a difficult, it's an obstacle in itself
Okay.
to get something notarized in prison. We have to put in for a call out and wait several days before you're called. And so it's definitely not an easy thing if you don't know what you're doing.
Okay. Okay. So then, how were you allowed to physically go to court? Did you have to physically go to court, or were things able to be handled via mailing back and forth?
So initially, you generally don't get produced for court proceedings. And because of that, I suffered a lot of damage as far as time wise. Like I started the procedure in June 2014, my first, and I did not eventually win until 2017 and,
3 years.
and did not see my son until 2018.
So for the first 4 years, you didn't see him.
But really 6 years because it was 2 years of like informal, trying to
Mm.
informally resolve it, and then 4 years of litigation, more or less, 3 years. And by the time that I was able to get him up there, it ended up being about 4 years.
Wow.
So that was extremely frustrating, and I ended up quote unquote winning because I was able to get myself produced like in court dates, and they weren't answering me. They stopped answering me. At one point, the Queen's Court clerk like switched positions. I
Mhm.
had to do a notarized letter from my mother, giving her permission to have access to my legal documents, and
Yeah.
she had to go to Sutphin Boulevard herself. And then they answered her like, "Oh, we're in between court clerks. Sorry." Like I wasn't getting a response. I was filing grievances. I
Mhm.
was probably one of the people that was incarcerated that had the most access in Sing Sing. I was on the inmate liaison committee, so I regularly dealt with the administration
Good.
daily basis. I brought it up to everybody. Nobody was hearing me. They were denying everything. Oh, it's not a problem. It's not, you know, sucking it up to like technological difficulties. The court didn't answer, and months of frustration where I couldn't physically go anywhere and say, hey, what's going on?
And you had
And
no access to send email or anything, right? There
yeah, I
was
don't have
access to that. I just want to,
it.
so the people
Yeah,
understand that also, that when we're talking about the lag in time, it's not like us on the outside who can just send an email to different courts and have a faster pace of time. There is an intentional delay of time here because there's no email access. Yes.
exactly. And yeah, so it's primarily snail mail. I can't call the court directly because they don't have you have to prepay for phone calls. So, the families have to prepay. So the court's not going to prepay for you to call and speak to them.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just extremely, extremely frustrating. I mean, I even had to make a three-way call, which is considered contraband in
Mm-hmm.
there. And they were like, oh, you're not supposed to be doing that. And I'm like, listen, I need to see my son and nobody's answering me.
Wow.
Um, so that was an extremely difficult and frustrating procedure. And eventually, what ended up happening is that I ended up writing to the senator at the time named Daniel O'Donnell. He
Mm-hmm.
was the chairman for the Committee on Corrections, and I basically informed him that my constitutional rights to access to the court were being violated, and the rights that I have as an incarcerated father were being violated by the administration at Sing Sing,
Mhm.
and they were very upset about that. But I had to explain to them that it wasn't personal, it was business. Like I would go through anybody to
Yeah.
see my son, and they weren't helping me. After I made that contact, then everything started falling into place. There was no more technological issues.
Mm.
I was produced via video conference, and then I petitioned the court to appear physically in person because I no longer wanted to deal with the little whatever was going on with the technology and the
Yeah.
disconnect that was happening.
Yeah.
And I was able to get myself produced.
And that's so important when we're talking in any court case, but when we're thinking about the dynamics of family court, one of the things that we are looking at is the trying to get a sense of the love and dedication that the parent has for their child. I think that is woven through it. And I think that is lost when you're in a teleconference, that the judge cannot necessarily fully ascertain, what's going on with this
Mhm.
parent, the things that aren't necessarily written in a brief. You're trying to get a dynamic from a person that on a video conference that is, scattered and shaking all over the place. That's not going to come across. But everything is a fight also is what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah.
There is no like, all right, well, obviously we can't see you clearly, so let's move, produce him physically in the court. It's like you have to fight for that. And that's the part that is part of the systemic racism, a part of the discrimination against parents who are incarcerated and fathers who are incarcerated, and I'm not sure how many months it is, but I know you're right. There is, if you're inactive in your child's life for a certain amount of time, you can forfeit your parental rights.
There's several clauses like the abandonment clause and the negligence clause, and they average between 6 months and 2 years. So I was way over that anyway.
See?
If
Crazy.
somebody had chosen to bring that up and highlight that.
Mm-hmm. Thank God that they didn't. But just to show you, I bring that up to say it's not really a lot of time. You might think like, oh, well, I just dipped for a little bit. Yeah, and in that little bit, if someone really wants to take away your parental rights, they can be. And that's kind of sad for you and then for your child too,
Absolutely.
So then you're home now, which is beautiful.
Thank
Glad that
God.
you're home. Thank God. So happy to see you outside. Yay! It's a big deal.
Thank you.
Um, Talk to us about what you've been doing since you've been home, both as a parent and in your career. Just let us into what's going on with you.
So, I came home in September, so I just made 9 months out.
Wow.
Um,
I thought it was
and
longer than that.
yeah,
Wow.
that's what everybody says, but no, I haven't even been home a year yet. So,
You just made it out.
absolutely. So in October, I started working for an organization called Worth Rises. The executive director is a woman named Bianca Tylek. She's like a spark plug. She's energetic. She's passionate. She's official. And I had connected with her while I was incarcerated. I did some volunteer work for the organization, and it was cool. So I came home, and we were like, we were clicking. We were going to conferences and events and things like that. And I was, she gave me a job offer, and I appreciated it. So she hired me as the community coordinator. And basically, as the community coordinator, my job is to ensure the equitable inclusion of directly impacted voices in all of the work that we do.
Mm-hmm.
And let me just backtrack a little just to explain about Worth Rises. So Worth Rises, we're based in New York, but we're a national nonprofit advocacy organization that aims to dismantle the prison industrial complex and end the financial exploitation of those it touches. So basically, incarcerated people and us, our families, their loved ones, the friends that suffer with incarcerated people for all these years.
Yes.
So we focus on divestment, on getting people informed about companies that are directly invested in prison profiteering, JPay, Securus, and GTL, these phone companies, the commissary companies, et cetera, et cetera. These are the kind of things that we focus on. And since I've been home, two of the biggest campaigns that I've been directly involved in have been like the phone justice campaigns, which are generally called connecting family campaigns, and labor is labor, which is basically about closing the loophole in the 13th Amendment that basically says that slavery is abolished except in the event of you being convicted of a crime. I mean, John knows I was incarcerated for all those years and I made 25 cents an hour, 30 hours a week. It's like what they pay people it's ridiculous. I was making less than 1% of what I make now, what a lot of people, what we do now. And we were running programs. I mean, John was.
Well, that's legal for a man in 2020, 2019, 2018, in this modern day in America to work every day an honest wage for 25 cents an hour. Like, that's ridiculous. That's upsetting. 25 cents, no train, not getting anyone ready. Where's the correction in that? How are you helping anyone by doing that?
Yeah, that was in like what they call a regular job. I also did a year of Courtcraft, which is New York State's nonprofit agency, and they use prison labor. And I think it's recently been highlighted when Cuomo announced the making of hand sanitizer. And he said New York State makes it, but he conveniently failed to mention that it's incarcerated people in New York State getting paid between 16 cents and 45 cents an hour making it. So of course you can run a profitable business when you have no overhead, when you don't pay your people anything.
Wow.
So yeah, that's something that I'm extremely passionate about. And then the phone justice thing, which is basically the push to make communication from prison free. Okay. My organization was able to successfully lobby for phone calls to be free on Rikers Island. Yes. This was while I was still incarcerated, so that's a huge victory, and it's modeled after that. We currently have campaigns where we're either leading or supporting the charge in Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, Louisiana, Michigan, and California, and looking to do some work in other places. We partner with several other organizations, the Osborne Association, Color of Change, which is one of the largest racial justice organizations in America. Unchained New York, Legal Aid Society. We partner with a plethora of organizations based in New York and national organizations to fight these things. And that's been the bulk of my work, really interacting with the people on the inside, fielding phone calls, emails from the inside, phone calls, emails, everything from families on the outside, making sure that their voices are uplifted, that they're empowered, that they know how to actively participate, that they're included in what their concerns are, what they're suffering, at the hands of this oppressive system. A lot of people like to say it's broken, but I think the system is working exactly how it was designed to work. And I love the work because I'm dealing with people that I consider family. I'm honestly doing something that I'd probably be doing for free, even if I wasn't employed.
You were doing it for free because it's basically the same thing you were doing inside a prison, like, on what I know of you. So you're just getting paid properly to do it outside now. But you definitely have a way with people and gathering us together to help ourselves. And as you're saying, the system's not broken. We just need to dismantle the system. It's working fine for who it's meant to work for, but that's not us. So the quicker we figure that out, the better off we will be. Oh, absolutely. Look who's coming here. Someone is about to join us. Hi.
Hello.
Special guest.
Oh yeah. Hello.
Now we got a show.
Hey.
Nah. You are the show, man.
Oh, man.
How are you?
I'm good, brother. How you doing, man?
I'm well. It's good to be here. I'm grateful that Vivett invited me and allowed me to come here to see you, man. For real.
Good seeing you, man.
Martin. I want to kind of get a feel of what y'all was speaking about, you know?
Oh, he's talking about his work out here
okay.
now with Bianca Tylik and Worth Rises and the 2 campaigns that he's doing now. So yeah, and his
That's what we were.
And
Hi.
I got Sebastian here with me.
Sebastian.
How are you,
Remember
honey?
Vivett and Johnson? Say how are you?
How are you?
I'm
Right.
good. How are you?
He's shy now. He's shy now.
Oh,
It's soft.
Well, Martine, I tell you, that was a good segue for what I could say about you, that you've always been good with your children. Even if it was your nephew or anybody else, you're a real man, bro. And I
Thank you, man.
that good, great dad, man. Yeah.
yes.
I appreciate that, John, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I'm grateful I met you. You know, that we can have this bond that we have now. I'm grateful to meet you.
Thank you, man. Yeah, we spoke about that. We spoke about some experiences inside, how we kind of had I kind of paralleled it to like the defund the police argument that's going on now. How we kind of, ran the gallery on our own, where everybody was able to air their grievances on their own, and everybody took accountability and worked together. Like when your grandmother passed away, when any one of us, were going through a trauma, that we all generally came together and explained the difficulties of accessing the phone, which is one of the things that, like in the phone bill, that in the phone justice campaign, and specifically in New York, we have 2 bills. One is to make the phone calls free, and the other one is directly related to access, increasing the amount of phones, increasing the areas that there's phones, acknowledging that people are being denied the phone during disciplinary sanctions. Like, what are we going to do to facilitate access for that? And hopefully long-term establishing the infrastructure to run the phone system through the tablets in New York State, which has only been done in solitary confinement units. So, I mean, these are some of the things that we're working on. We're hoping to introduce the bills in the next 6 months for the next legislative session in New York.
Okay.
And so I'll definitely keep y'all posted on what I got going on. I got maybe some workout events, community events coming up, barbecues this summer we're trying to throw.
Yes.
I like that.
Events, so.
How can people get involved? Can you just go over maybe the website again, or some ways they can get involved? Daniel, I'm not sure if you're listening, but if you could maybe like pull that up for us so people could see it. But at the very least, like, what's the website and how can we get more involved?
Cool. So I'll give you a couple of websites. So my organization's website, worthrises.org. You can sign up for the the email, so we can keep people updated. And then we have the phone justice website, which is connectfamiliesnow.com or .org. That's the website, which is like where the national collective exists, or the local, state, and national campaigns. There's petitions that you can sign. There's a storytelling section where you see a picture of myself and my daughters and a quote from me. We have audio quotes from people. We're hoping to have videos from people. If people want to participate, they can contact me at mgarcia@worthrises.org. And we can connect like that, where I can collect people's stories if they want, on the inside, on the outside. You can also call me at, I put my number out there, it doesn't matter. I end up getting calls and I don't know where people got it from all over, from Texas, from Oregon, but my phone number is 516-789-6487. People that are incarcerated can call me. If you're a family member directly impacted, if you're an advocate from another organization, or if you simply just want to get involved and get more information, you can call me at any time and we can connect, and I can talk about further things that we have coming down, events coming down the line, and district lobby visits that we're planning on doing. So that's some of the ways that you can get involved. Those are the 2 websites. I also do a lot of work with the Osborne Association.
Yes.
I work with Osborne on the inside. They're my family. I volunteer with them all the time. I worked in the Children's Center in Sing Sing, and it provided some of the most priceless moments I've ever experienced in my life.
And we're on the Speakers Bureau together. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what I do with Osborne now. I'm part of the Speakers Bureau, and I'm also an advisor to their New York Initiative for Children of Incarcerated Parents, which I was on the inside, and now that I'm released, I'm able to do more work with them. And with the Speakers Bureau, we try to just highlight all the issues that are going on that are related to family trauma, the children of incarcerated parents, policy policies that involve families and the children of incarcerated parents. So I take a lot of pride in that. I grew up with my father in prison. My father went to prison when I was 1 year old and did almost 20 years over several bids. And now my children, I'm a father of 3, and my children have essentially grown up while I was incarcerated. Now my children are 14 years old, 9 years old, and 8 years old. And I'm just thankful that I was able to come back at such a crucial time in their lives.
Yes.
I love the work that Osborne does, you know, with Vivett, with John, with our brother Lawrence,
Yes.
with Whitney, with Tanya, with Allison, Echoes of Incarceration.
Ebony.
I would tell you, with Emily, I would definitely tell people to check out Speak Your Truth, obviously. Echoes of Incarceration. They can also follow With Rises on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
Yes.
You can look me up on Instagram, Martin Garcia 35. Same thing on Facebook. I do everything.
Jules, y'all. I hope y'all are getting this. You'll be able to get it on the replay, but
Yeah, they
good
can contact you too and reach out to me directly.
Yes.
I'm just happy that I'm able to give back and contribute, because a lot of people, and I think John can attest to that too, a lot of people gave back and contributed to our well-being while we were incarcerated.
Yes.
And I'm thankful that I'm able to provide hope. A lot of guys call me from inside when they see me on the news or something, like, "Yo, we were in the yard and we saw you talking on the news about the bail reform and whatever issues going on right now." And people are like, "Yo, you're sincere, you're for real, you didn't forget about the people." Like, and it's not necessarily something wrong with that either. I'll speak to that. You know, like, people suffered a lot of trauma. People suffered a lot of years, 25, 30 years of your life. And you may never want to see or have anything to do with the system again. And that's okay. But there's a lot of us that if you can give back, you should give back. Whatever way that you can, speak up about the issues. We all have a civic duty. I mean, I just voted for the first time in my life.
Yeah, man.
that was exciting, because I never believed in the system. I never believed I could have an impact in the system, and that's why I lived outside of the system.
That's a great point, man. Martin, you bring up a lot of things. I tell you I know one thing you were always passionate about, helping people, being a liaison, and even before you was that, doing grievances, just everything. You were always active, trying to make a place that wasn't supposed to be good, trying to make it better. You know, it reminds me of a person that's going into places that we brought up in the urban communities, and you live there, and you don't see too many people that go against that grain, where there may be trash outside, there may be bottles over the place, but you was one saying, well, you know what, I'm gonna pick this up, I'm gonna clean this up, in spite of somebody may throw it down tomorrow, but I'm gonna still try to make my mark and try to, you know, make a difference. And you did that, and I'm figuratively speaking, obviously, because you did that with your passion for grievances, with your passion for, you know, being a liaison for people. And you were licensed to do it there, where some of us, like myself, I had to get called maybe once or twice or 3 times in a day. "Oh, John, Dukes, could you help us with this up here with the mental health, or with this person?" Or like you said, on the gallery sometimes. But you were not only licensed, and this is something that politicians can take a look at your integrity, that you had a title and you lived up to your title. Not too many people have a title and live up to their title.
Thank you, man.
I commend you for that.
Good point.
I appreciate that, man. That means a lot. I did enjoy that work. I enjoyed the politics a lot. And that's probably one of the things that helped groom me too, like Vivett was asking before, like, what is it? Like, being IOC, that definitely helped me grow. It's like a mix of politics, but you're like a union representative. The difficult balance. You got to find middle ground. You got to, you don't want the staff to hate you, because you got to do things with them. You don't want your people to hate you, because you got to do things for them.
Yes.
And the staff, a lot of the times, is a means to an end in there. And they're people too, a lot of the times. Not all of them are horrible people in there too. A lot of them treated us like human beings. And I think that humanizing ourselves in their eyes was a large part of the movement that's going on right now too. Like, a lot of people didn't call us inmate or by our DIN number. They would be like John, Martin, by our first names. And that just exemplified, I think, the character that people saw in us, like they saw us as a human being, like. So I think that was a huge part of my experience. And then I got the older guys like John. John was part of my growing experience. Lawrence, Bartley, Kenyatta,
Yes.
Green Eyes, Sean,
Yes.
the Hudson Link family. I'm Hudson Link alumni too. I gotta shout them out, man. They were a huge
That's
part
right.
of
College, man.
I always talk about that. I got Worth Rises, I got Osborne, and I got Hudson Link. Man, I'm
Yes.
part of several families. And, they do a great thing for us, providing us with that education, man, allowing me to get my associate's degree, and hopefully I'll be pursuing my bachelor's soon.
Yes.
Life happens when you come home, and, you gotta catch up and pay bills and take care of things, but I'm definitely looking forward to going back to school. I love that, taking classes for Mercy, taking classes, can't forget about Columbia University.
I was going to say, you took class at Columbia, too.
Professor Downey she'll chase me down if I don't shout out the Center for Justice.
And, I love how Worth Rises has added value to the work that you were doing inside and didn't seek to say, well, it doesn't matter what you did because of where you did it, but to just see that, listen, if this person, Martin Garcia, is a community organizer, if you were able to do that in a very difficult environment of prison, imagine, it just shows, look what you're doing here, where there are different barriers and in some ways less barriers. You're really taking that same energy. I'm just wondering, where did you get that from in you? Where are you from? I find that people who are like that come from people who are like that. So who do you come from, and why are you such an advocate for other people?
I think it allowed me, so I grew up, I honestly grew up loving to fight. And in a physical form, and I realized that, you can't live your life like that. So I think I channeled a lot of that energy. I'm born and raised in Queens, in Flushing, Queens. My family's from Columbia.
Hey.
The women in my family they're spark plugs. My mother's a warrior, So she says it all the time. She's like, I think you got that from me, and I'm like, gotta take my shine. But I definitely did, man.
I've seen her a few times in action. She's,
Yeah, my mother's a warrior, man. Came to this country, running away from the problems in Colombia, didn't know anybody really, just with my grandmother, may she rest in peace, brought them over when they were young and made something of her life.
Wow.
In legitimate ways. Had probably the same options that I did, and she just decided to make different choices. And always working 2 jobs, working 16-hour days when I was younger. She's a warrior, so I think I get my fighting spirit definitely from her, from the women in my family.
It was, Martin, I don't want to cut you off, but it was something that I want to get back to, that I wanted to kind of expand on it, because you took me somewhere when you spoke about how the officers at Sing Sing would speak to us by name, and they got a chance to see the human part of us. And it's interesting because you can compare that to, like you said, with the Black Lives Matter movement, with how people are of that's Black, brown people, we have to go through so much just to prove that we're a human being. Or, I can't just wear a certain thing, a certain outfit or attire, I can't just be free, as Vivett so eloquently puts it in many ways when we speak. We can't just be free. There's so many things that we have to do, so many hurdles we have to jump over just to show that, I'm a man, or I'm a human being, like how you did to fight the courts to get with your children and so forth. Just so many things. And I know even some of those barriers that were there, they definitely were there. And I believe, and I want to believe, that some people, if not all, some people were changed by what you did and what you accomplished. Like, wow, this man is fighting. Like, we don't want to give it to him, but he's right. And then I'm sure they had to see after a while, like, this is a dad, this is a real man. And that's something that it took years sometimes for some of us to see with encounters that we had. So yeah, I just wanted to spread light on that. I don't know if you wanted to speak about that even further, but
I agree, and I always think about it. Just made me laugh right now inside. I'm like, John and I created like, it was like a joke. And now that I'm mentioning it, I really want to sit down one day. We should really create this poem. We had this poem as a joke. It was kind of like my I Have a Dream speech. There was a time.
Oh, yeah.
We would be like, there was a time when you couldn't, like take a shower every day. And we just talk about all the negative things that used to happen on the gallery, all the rights and privileges that people didn't have that we were able to advocate for and win.
Yeah.
And so we like, it just started like, and I don't know, John said it one time, and they was like, oh, there was a time. And it just started like naming things like victories that I accomplished on the gallery. And they're like, yeah, and it just, I'm like, now we should really sit down and compose that.
Yeah.
Turn it into an actual version of something. And I would like to see that. It's just, I was really big on that, man. And I was big, like, and I was able to, like, we were able to lay a claim to fame, like, and I would always bring it to the administration. I'm like, I challenge you to find another unit in America where there hasn't been a fight in 3 years. Now, one act of violence in a maximum security prison where a man can walk around in slippers and feel safe in a bathrobe. We had the bathrobe fight. I mean, in a maximum security prison, I'm like, it's unheard of. And I would use that a lot to advocate for the things that I was asking for us to be treated like men, like human beings, acting accordingly, because we acted as such. Like, we met these standards of behavior that we say we're prison, but it's really just being a man, being an adult, living in a community, learning how to interact with other people and how to articulate when you have a concern or an issue with something, and not necessarily just resorting to violence to resolve it. And having community meetings, which people used to like drag their feet, like, oh man. But it really was a good time for the gallery, for everybody. Everybody was living in peace. Everybody was able to go to school, speak to their family members, get what we needed, and develop our routine and get by, which is all we were trying to do, was get by and get out.
So I'd like to ask you this for our viewers who may also be parents who are returning citizens. In what ways can they get involved in their children's lives and the communities that they are a part of? What are some recommendations you might have?
I think one of the biggest things you have to do is kind of put your ego to the side. Like, first of all, you have to acknowledge that you're coming back into an area where people have been living how they've been living for years without you. So it's going to be an adjustment. And a lot of times we're used to just coming in and being like, oh, like, this is how we like things, and this is how it should be. And you got to kind of take a time to assess the situation, see what's going on, meet your child where they are. Like, this Fortnite thing blows my mind. Roblox and Fortnite, but the kids love it. And I'm like, why am I spending $10 on this? But my children love it, so I had to learn about it and play with them a little bit and meet them on their level and just understand that you haven't been there. We haven't been there, so you have to just ease into things. And there's also the fear that you may leave again, because at one point we did leave. So that fear in there is absolutely natural. Then you got to let them know, like, I'm here to stay. Just be consistent. Be consistent, be consistent, be consistent. And learn what they like, learn what they don't like, get creative with them, take them out, and just do your homework, because that's like they should have a college class on what kids like. I don't know.
They're all
Some of
different,
the things.
And even having adult children, coming home, I had to learn that as well. I had to learn to kind of get into their world, not be so, although I was always in my daughter's life, our oldest one, it was times though that I had to learn to, like, let me listen and see what's going on and how she's dealing with things before I step in and start giving her my advice, because I have a way of dealing with things. But now it's like, wait a minute, Dad, you've been gone. I'm a little old. Like, we're so proud of her. Our oldest one just brought her home. And we're like, there was things I was telling her. And one time she said, Dad, hold up. You need to ask Vivett real quick. She said, because I don't know if you're getting this one, like that. So there's times that even and I have to check my parenting skills at times as well. Like, wait a minute. I think that's I would say this. I think that's the part of parenting. Just being sensitive to hearing them and to be able to understand them before you even put your input. That's what I would say.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And if you don't know how to do it, I would suggest taking parenting skills. I mean, I took parenting classes inside, and I learned a lot of things. And some of them may seem common sense, but sometimes you just need to hear things. And like one of the biggest things now I try to maintain a more than civil relationship with my son's mother and with my daughter's mother. Like beyond them, I try to show my children, because I'm not with either one of my children's mother anymore, but I try to show them that we're friends, and I show them the utmost respect in front of them, without them, so that they learn to see. So my son can learn to see how a woman should be treated, and so that my daughters learn to see how a man should be treating them, and they shouldn't accept anything less than being respectful. So it's more than just being cordial for the sake of being cordial. Like I generally try to buy into, like I consider them my friends, and I would do, as much as I can for them within my means, because they're extended part of my family, even though I'm not romantically involved with either one of them anymore.
Yeah.
That's great.
I love that model, that just family. You are an extended family. Share a child together. Like that's a big deal. And so we need to come together just as a community in general. Like they're all our children, and the brokenness that takes place in our families by things like incarceration, by things like just us not being together for a lot of reasons that are our choices, and there are external factors too, things that harm Black and Brown communities. But it's important that we start the healing process as well. And that begins with exactly what you're saying, like have respect for one another. Let our children see that, because we're modeling for them how they're going to be, or how we want them to be. I was talking with a lady the other day, and she was having some challenges with her daughter, typical like teenage stuff. She's not cleaning up. So she's like, yeah, but I keep telling her to clean. I'm like, yeah, but maybe she doesn't know what that means. We take for granted sometimes what we think our kids know or don't know. You have to show them. I'm like, and I started giving her some ideas and maybe do these like practical things to help. And she was like, wow, I never thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is just me in hindsight because my children are older. I didn't think about that either. But now the experience with having raised children to this point and teaching, I'm like, yo, they need help more than we give. Like they're advanced in some ways, but other things they really need step-by-step parenting.
Absolutely.
That we're distracted with like phones and other things, and we're not giving it to them. Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I also think it's important too, like I try to maintain a civil relationship with my children's mother's significant others, so that they don't see us at odds, and then they see the way that I treat my girlfriend as well. You know what I'm saying? And my daughters love my girlfriend, so that's also another dynamic that I think is extremely important. Like there's a lot of moving parts, and people have to put their egos to the side and realize that it's about them, because they're our future, and they're going to more or less live out how we raised them. And like you said, there's external factors, but there's things that are within our reach that we can help them grow, and develop adequately.
And I think when we think about it like that, it's like, well, would you have a child with this person then? Because that's really what it entails. Whether you choose to marry them, just by de facto, the fact that you have a child with them, you're with them for the rest of their life. Them, whoever they choose. I know we're not thinking about that when we're doing that, but perhaps that's something that can be learned also, so we can try to mitigate some of these difficult relationships,
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to have the last word. You guys have the last word.
Well,
I'm happy to see you guys both out. This is cool.
Yeah, it feels great.
Absolutely.
I would like Martine,
Yeah,
I just want to say, listen, thank y'all for having me. Like you said, we got a lot of good memories. We spoke about days like this when we were behind that wall.
Yes.
And it was genuine. I credit John with a lot of my growth and development, whether he knows it or not. Definitely a good friend. I mean, I remember showing him he could get out 6 months early. He didn't even know for a second.
Yes.
Remember that? You know what I'm saying? So just little, I pride myself on being a conduit for information, man, and being there for the people, man. I got nothing but love for y'all.
Right.
And thank you for having me. I'm glad I could share, hopefully I was informative and entertaining to the people. I would love to come back and bring my crew with me, the Worth Rises team.
Yes, please
We
do.
can set something up.
You have an open
I'll
invitation.
talk to, because we got, I mean, I know Bianca, but we got 3 brand new members too that are fired too. You know, Megan, Jan, and Taylor.
Yes, bring them on.
We'll
Worthrising.org. Check them out. They're doing real work.
definitely set something up for the future, man.
All right. Well,
Like that.
we thank you. That's
Thank
it
you,
for
Martin.
us tonight at Speak Your Truth. We thank you, Martin Garcia. We thank all of you. We'll see you again on Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, take good care.
And speak your truth.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
All right.